A hospital bombing in Darfur, Sudan's region, 13 children among the dead, 2 nurses, 1 doctor, the maternity ward, the pediatric ward, the emergency department, all gone. And for over 2,000 people who needed that hospital, there is nothing left. And on the other side of the world, 11 million people in Cuba went to bed in a complete darkness this week. No electricity, no running water, food rotting and spoiling, hospitals running on fumes. A 15-year-old mother with 2 babies saying there's worse than anything her grandfather lived through. There is a connection between these 2 stories. It's oil. Who has it, who doesn't, and who's using it as a weapon. I know a lot of these national headline news are being buried under the Iran war headlines, and it deserves its own moments. Friday, the 20th of March, a hospital was struck in Al Dain, the capital of East Darfur State in Sudan. According to the World Health Organization, the attack on their teaching hospitals killed at least 64 people. Those are among them 13 children, multiple patients, female nurses and male doctors. And another 89 were wounded, including 8 healthcare staff. The attack damaged the hospital's pediatric, maternity, and emergency department, rendering the entire facility completely non-functional and cutting off essential medical services for the entire city of Al Dain. The director of the WHO General said that something that basically stopped me as a result of this tragedy. A total number of fatalities linked to attacks on health facilities during the Sudan war has now surpassed 2,000. 2,000 people killed in attacks on healthcare facilities in one war. And this is what has been documented. And guess what? This is not the only attack this week. It was not only the only attack this month. On the 10th of March, a truck carrying civilians was hit in El Sonut, killing 50 people, among them women and children. 2 days before that, RSF drones hit a secondary school and health centers in the village of Shukiri in the White Nile state, killing at least 17 people. The students, teachers, and healthcare workers. The UN Human Rights Chief said that he was appalled after more than 2,000 civilians were reported killed by drone attacks within just 8 days between March 4th and March 12th alone. So 2,000 people, 8 days, drones. Sudan now counts for more than half of the drones attacked across the entire African continent. In the first 2 months of 2026 alone, 198 drone strikes were recorded. At least 52 of those caused civilian casualties, killing at least 478 people. And the war has now spilled beyond Sudanese borders. A drone attack launched from Sudan killed 17 people in Chad border town of Tain, striking mourners gathered at the funeral. Children playing nearby were among the dead. The Chadian president called an emergency defense meeting and ordered the military to retaliate immediately. So this war is no longer just contained to Sudan. It's now a regional crisis. The UN Security Council this month imposed sanctions on 4 senior RSF figures, including the brother of RSF leader Hemdati, with travel bans and asset freezes. The International Criminal Court has opened a formal probe into alleged war crimes by both sides, and the UNSC has expressed deep alarm over repeated drone strikes against civilians, schools, hospitals, and humanitarian workers, including multiple attacks on World Food Program operations. So both sides in this war have been accused of war crimes and crimes against humanity. The RSF has been specifically implicated in atrocities in Darfur that UN experts say bear the hallmark of genocide. Now, who's responsible for the Friday's attack? The Sudanese right group Emergency Lawyers reported that it was the army drone, meaning Sudan's own military. RSF-controlled Al Dain has been regularly attacked by Sudanese army, which is attempting to push RSF forces back towards their Darfur strongholds. And now on the other side of the globe, Cuba, because what's happening there right now is something that has not been seen since the Cold War. And everyday families are paying the price in ways that are genuinely heartbreaking. A 15-year-old girl named Melanie Chantel lives in Havana with her husband and 2 young children. She says at this moment right now is harder than anything her 59-year-old grandmother lived through. I think that's something that is going to get worse, she said. Sometimes because of the power, we can't get water and people go crazy, reported NPR News. As of February 2026, a carton of 30 eggs cost over 3,000 Cuban pesos. The average monthly salary is about 6,500 pesos, less than 13 US dollars at the informal exchange rate. So, one Cuban woman said that she skips at least one meal a day. An elementary school teacher said the cost of buying food for her family consumes her entire salary basically. And this is not statistic. This is a daily life for 11 million people. Now, Cuba has been dependent on imported oil for decades, historically receiving is primarily from Venezuela and Mexico. And we know what's been happening in Venezuela at this moment, even with Mexico, right? With the cartels, the president being, kidnapped and all of that stuff. So Venezuela alone was sending about 35,000 barrels per day to Cuba. Those deliveries stopped entirely this year after, the U.S. has ousted the president of Venezuela. So in January of this year, and imposed a blockade on Venezuelan oil's exports. So on January 29th, Trump signed an executive order declaring a national emergency in imposing an oil blockade on Cuba, threatening tariffs against any country that sells or provides oil to Cuba. Mexico's state oil company Pemex, which has been supplying about 44% of Cuba's oil, stopped deliveries. Russia stopped. So the supply simply just collapsed. And on March 16th, Cuba national power grid failed completely, which we have the 11 million people losing electricity for nearly 30 hours. It was the third major island-wide breakout in 4 months. The country's president confirmed Cuba had not received an oil shipment in 3 full months. Now, surgeries for tens of thousands of patients have been postponed. Gasoline on the black market for about $10 per liter. Taxi drivers who used to receive over 300 liters of fuel per day now get 20. Tourism, already fragile, had nearly completely collapsed. Garbage trucks cannot run. Waste is piling up in Havana streets. Without water pumps, neighborhoods having no running water. So, now, with the Trump administration's position, the blockade is designed to pressure Cuba's communist government to release political prisoners, move towards the democratic reform, and end what Washington calls human rights abuses. Now, Trump said he wants Cuba to make a deal and has raised the possibility of, in his own words, taking Cuba. The administration sent $6 million in humanitarian aid through the Catholic churches. We have an international response. The UN Secretary General said he's extremely concerned about the humanitarian situation in Cuba and warned it could worsen or even collapse more. The number of protests inside Cuba, rare under strict government control, increased from 30 in January to 130 in just the first month of March. Anti-government protests even attacked the Communist Party office in the city of Morón on the 14th of March. One expert in Cuba told NPR directly it would be a constant misery for the general population, and eventually the economy could collapse completely when then you would have a social chaos and probably mass migration from Cuba to where? To Florida, to United States, to the same country imposing the blockade. And that's the question I want to hold. If this blockade creates the collapse it's designed to create, who observes millions of Cubans who have nowhere to go? And is that part of the plan? Now, I did mention that the oil is the combining factor to this. Sudan, Cuba, Iran, the DHS shut down, ICE enforcement, gas nearly at $4 a gallon. Every single one of those stories have oil running through it. The US has now lifted, on the sanctions on Iranian oils to bring gas prices down while still bombing Iran. The Hormuz, carrying over 20% of the world's oil, remains still under standstill. They're at 48 hours. And there's a lot of things happening. The president is saying, oh, there's been great talks, things are going to get better. Iranians are saying today, nah, there hasn't been any conversations. The president's delusional. He's creating his own narrative, which kind of brought the prices of oil down temporarily today, but it's still up. It's going to go up. So he's basically playing and manipulating the stock market, which is ridiculous if you ask me. Experts have been saying now if no new fuel shipments reach Cuba in the coming weeks, the country could reach what they would call 0 hour, a total depletion of all fuel reserves, and fall into the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression of the 1930s. And at home, Trump said this week he believes he will have the honor of taking Cuba, saying, whether I take it free, take it, I think I could do anything I want with it. Ridiculous if you ask me. So a country of 11 million people in the dark, without food, without water, without medicine, and the most powerful, quote unquote, the most quote unquote powerful leader in the world said he could do anything he wants to do with it. And that's where we are right now. These stories deserve your attention. Share this video with someone who needs to hear them. Subscribe to Voices Within Qalbi. We'll be right back. Until next time, I leave you all in the care of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Fi amanillah.